So today NASA's Artemis moon landing rocket takes off today. I thought, why not destroy that before it's even taken off by revisiting the original moon landing pantomime and going back to the press conference, which is some of the most blatant obvious footage there is out there. And of course, every body language expert on this earth will agree that Neil, Buzz, and Michael in the press conference from the moon landings look more like they're at a funeral, or potentially their own family's funeral, than at a successful press conference having come back from the moon, travelled on a rocket, doing ludicrous speeds in a vacuum. Of course, Buzz, as we're about to see here when we revisit the clip I showed the other day, is going to put things in perspective for us and show why the press conference from the moon landing was the way it was.
There's the gentleman waving his hand afterwards.
What was the scariest moment of the journey?
Scariest? It didn't happen. It could have been scary. Circuit breaker.
As Buzz has said, yet again, for the third time I believe, it didn't happen. And now we come to the original moon landing press conference, with what should be three legends buzzing, oozing confidence, riding high on the adrenaline of an incredible adventure, having travelled 250,000 miles through a vacuum, in a spacecraft made of duct tape, tin foil, baking paper, and curtain rods. Resembles more like the funeral of their own family. And of course, remember Buzz, it didn't happen. So I dread to think what was said to these guys to get them to go along with this charade. I've said it before, we know they're wrong uns, but I suspect they got themselves in a lot deeper water than they actually believed. Based off this press conference, I suspect in the early days, these guys actually thought they were going. But of course, somewhere along the line, quite near the end by the looks of things, they had to be told, you ain't going anywhere. And of course, Buzz said, it didn't happen. And as we're about to see, Neil, Buzz, and Michael's body language, rather than oozing in confidence, chest pumped out. They're twitchy, uncomfortable, sketchy, lacking confidence, marinating in pain and hurt.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Mayan Spacecraft Center. This is the Apollo 11 press conference. The format today will consist of a 45-minute presentation by the Apollo 11 crew, followed by question and answers. At this time, I'd like to introduce the Apollo 11 crew, astronauts Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, Edwin Aldrin. Neil?
It was our pleasure to have participated in one great adventure. It's an adventure that took place not just in the month of July, but rather one that took place in the last decade. We all here and the people listening in today had the opportunity to share that adventure over its developing and unfolding in the past months and years. It's our privilege today to share with you some of the details of that final month of July that was certainly the highlight for the three of us of that decade.
Yes, we can detect the excitement, the euphoria as you reflect upon that month, which was the highlight of the last decade of your lives. Rather than being absolutely overcome with emotion, and of course reflecting on that incredible adventure would bring back adrenaline, which you would have experienced doing those ludicrous speeds in your tin can flying through a vacuum. But no, you're hurting, you're suffering. I dread to think what they had said to you to get you to go along with this silly charade. It obviously wasn't very nice.
We're going to divert a little bit from the format of past press conferences and talk about the things that interested us most, in particular the things that occurred on and about the moon. We will use a number of films and slides which most of you have already seen, and with the intent of pointing out some of the things that we...
Like I've said, I've looked happier myself at funerals. Happier. And yet we're supposed to believe that Neil has come back from this incredible adventure, having landed that silly spacecraft, nearly running out of fuel, and coming back to the globe Earth, flying through a vacuum, doing ludicrous speeds. And this is how he is, having retelling those stories.
Observed on the spot, which may not be obvious to those of you who are looking at them here from the surface of Earth.
What's obvious, Neil, is the twitchy, sketchy nature of all three of you, particularly yourself. Of course, the camera's been focused on you mostly. I feel sorry for you, Neil. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I do. I think probably you were a genuine bloke who had good intentions, even though you were part of the Funny Hands Club. I think you actually thought you were going to do flying craft through a vacuum and land on the moon. And obviously you've had a rude awakening, mate. Buzz in later life just doesn't give a flying fuck, excuse my language, which is why he's dropping truth bombs and highlighting it left, right and centre. Because he knows now it's obvious. When we look back at the footage, it's like Airfix models, Thunderbirds models, a bit of space pantomime. Terrible. And of course we look at the press conference here and we take into account what Buzz has said. Only a dullard would struggle to work it out.
The flight, as you know, started promptly. And I think that was characteristic of all the events of the flight. The Saturn gave...
He's fucking close to tears, Neil. He's hurting that much. He just wants to fucking cry, bless him.
That's one magnificent ride. Both into Earth orbit and on a...
Well, I don't mean with joy and overcome with emotion either. Any reality deniers trying to cling on. No. He's suffering that much, having to go along with his silly, obvious charade. It's hurting him that much. He's almost tearful.
Trajectory to the moon. Our memory of that actually differs little from the reports that you have all heard from those previous Saturn V flights.
We'll put Neil out of his suffering there, and we'll end it there, because it's so difficult to watch a man having to go along with his charade. And we'll let Buzz put it all into perspective for us and highlight why as we sign off for the day.
We'll go to the gentleman waving his hand afterwards.
What was the scariest moment of the journey?
Scariest. It didn't happen.